Hello friends and fellow fantasy book lovers! So is Vin from the Mistborn trilogy actually the chosen one? I'm going to say yes, and I'll explain why in this video. But first, there are major spoilers here. If you have not finished the entire trilogy, you should not watch this video, because I will spoil it for you, okay? Fair warning. Now let's talk about Vin. I would like to start this video with a shout out to a fellow Mistborn fan, the first person to say she was excited for a video from this book series. I really hope I say your name right. Kirthana Chinnasamy. Thank you for your support, and this video is partly for you. In book 1, Vin opens up to Marsh about some of her tragic backstory, about her mother who heard voices and went insane, killed her baby sister, and gave her this earring. And that earring had some serious foreshadowing going on. We knew it was going to come up at some point, we just didn't know how. At least I didn't. I'm not very good at picking up on clues, and I never see plot twists coming. My guess with the earring was that it was going to hold some sort of ferrochemical charge that she could swallow and use in the finale. I was very wrong, but the truth about the earring was still really interesting, and I appreciated that twist. Vin's brother Reen comes in quite a bit. She hears his voice in her head throughout the whole series. She talks about how he would beat her and he hid her and he kind of watched over her in the underground. And we see Vin kind of working through her feelings for her brother. And in the third book, we see how she looks back and she thinks, you know, I think my brother really cared about me and really loved me. And the reason he beat me was because he was trying to keep me safe and he was so scared that someone would find out about my powers. Luckily, at the point that Vin thinks all this through, she's mature enough to realize that that abuse she suffered from Reen was very wrong. It was not okay, unlike many who come through abuse thinking that they had somehow deserved it. For the rest of her life, Vin hears Reen's voice in the back of her head, like this pessimistic conscience. And even towards the end of book 3, looking back, she's not always able to tell which voice in her head was Reen and which one was Ruin, because they sounded so similar. Ruin just took what Reen would always say to her and make it sound like him. And so how is she really supposed to know who was who and who was actually influencing her mind and her decisions? Vin grows up living a very harsh life. Maybe not as harsh as if she had been a plantation ska, but still not what any child should have to endure. And here is some of the controversy with these books that I will give my humble opinion on. You are free to disagree with me, but here's my take on this. There are people who think that for this book series to be more true to life and for Vin's character to be more realistic, she should have suffered being taken advantage of. That's how I'm going to refer to it for the sake of younger viewers who might be watching this. And that for a young female character growing up the way she did, it's only realistic if that happens to her. Here's where I disagree. For one, Sanderson can do what he wants, and he didn't feel it necessary for Vin's character to go through that. Maybe that sounds a little like an excuse, but I have other reasons. Vin did have her brother there to protect her while she was very young. That's not a failsafe, but he was there. He was not very kind to her, but he did watch out for other people doing things to her. She is also a powerful allomancer. She doesn't know this about herself, she doesn't know how to control it, but she has what she calls luck. And if some guy starts leering at her, she uses her luck on them and kind of pushes them away from her. That's probably the main reason why she never got taken advantage of in that way. And preservation itself had its eye on her whole life. I don't know how much that influenced that part of her life, but you know, a god named Preservation can maybe preserve some things for her. Also, this is a fantasy book. Everything about it is not realistic or true to real life, so why do we need that one thing to make it real for her? Maybe some readers just were hoping to see it? I don't know. In my opinion, to make Vin's character seem more realistic as a female character, she would have started worrying about pregnancy shortly after her marriage to Eland. This is wartime. She should have been scared of bringing a child into the world. She views one of her main purposes as protecting Eland, her husband. She would probably worry that if she got pregnant, could she really protect him all that well? She would probably have things on her mind like, How does burning elementic metals affect my body while I'm pregnant or affect the unborn fetus within me? And she might really worry about whether at some point she would have to choose between protecting her husband and protecting a child. It just doesn't seem realistic that that thought never even enters her mind. I don't see this idea explored at all by Sanderson for the female character or by Vin herself within the story. And I can pretty much guarantee that in a world without birth control, or where the only form of birth control is abortion or kill the mother, these thoughts would have been on her mind. So I suggest that male authors keep this in mind when trying to write a realistic female character. The childbearing half of the population is forced by necessity to think about this kind of stuff. So for those calling for realism for Vin's character, I would say that considering pregnancy is much more realistic than being R-worded. Let's talk about some of the main themes in these books. I saw strong themes of self-identity, belief, and trust. Belief maybe not so much for Vin's character, but definitely self-identity issues and trust issues. These come up a lot for her, and for Elend, but this video is about Vin. Who is she? And can she reconcile all the different aspects of her life? Street urchin, thief, Mistborn, lady, Elend's love interest, hero of ages? I think this is probably the most relatable struggle about her, struggling with who we are as a person. I have all these different things about myself, but who am I really? I think we've all been there. Am I a basketball player or am I a singer? Who gets the reference? The people that I see that seem to struggle with this idea of self-identity the most are probably teenagers and mothers. Teens are on this journey from childhood, where many things are decided for them or forced on them by the adults in their life, and they have to work through as they near adulthood with wondering, who am I? Sometimes it's as simple as what's my actual clothing style and what music do I listen to, but usually it's so much deeper than that, and you start to feel so lost and you just don't know how to figure it out. In the Mistborn trilogy, Vin starts out as a 16-year-old. That's right in that time of being a teen where you're trying to figure out this stuff anyway, and she has all this other stuff thrown at her that she has to figure out as well. That's not going to be easy. It's probably a good thing that Vin didn't become a mother during this book series, because that would throw so much more at her to try to figure out. When I first became a mother, my husband had to get on to me and he had to say, Tiffany, you were a person before you were a mom. And that really struck me. I know so many moms who have to work through this. A mom literally becomes another person. But here's the thing. You don't trade in the person you were, give it back, okay, now I'm a mom, now I'm someone else, now I have to figure this whole thing out. No. What you have done is you have added motherhood to who you already were, and now you are just so much more. More capacity to love, more capacity for empathy. There's more to you. You become even more multifaceted than you were before. Like a jewel. You are worth more than rubies. And I know some of you will get that reference. So through these 3 books, we see Vin really struggling with her self-identity. Something so relatable. And it's not till towards the end of book 3 that she's finally able to come to accept all the different aspects about her are all true and they are all part of her. She is not 1 or 2 dimensional. She is a multifaceted person, and that's good, and that makes her who she is. As part of her personality, I did appreciate how she comes to view her idea of trust, even though I don't think this part of her was super true to real life. For someone with severe trust issues, it's usually a lifelong thing. It's not as easy as just deciding, okay, I'm gonna trust you now. But for this story, it was important for Vin's character to be able to make that decision. Later in the story, we find out just how much ruin has been influencing her mind and her thought process and her decisions. And for her to be able to decide, I would rather live with trust for these people and risk being betrayed than to live without trust. I think that's really awesome for her. And this theme of trust through the books, and especially with Vin, extends to her relationship with Elend. It affects every aspect of this relationship, and their romantic relationship is built on this idea of trust and having to learn to trust each other, just as it should in a real life relationship. I kind of loved in these books how both Elend and Vin really questioned themselves and whether they were right for the other person. I think this is something that really happens in real life with real relationships, feeling insecure with yourself, wondering why someone could actually like you or love you. So that's kind of a theme for their relationship through book 2. They both have to struggle with this idea of, is this really the person I want for myself? And am I really the kind of person that that person will want? That is something that I think is so relatable that we can all understand. That insecurity of, can I really be what this other person wants? And having to accept that, yeah, the person I love looks at me and sees the thing that they want in their life. I think that can be harder to accept than accepting that the other person is who you want. I love the scene in book 3 where Vin and Eland get their dance at the ball. That whole scene was beautifully done, and maybe a little fan servicey, but I can accept a little fan service. The entire ball just goes well for them. They're dancing gracefully because they're both Mistborn now. Eland pulls out the book to make it more nostalgic for Vin from the first ball where they met. And it's okay because nothing is quite as fan servicey as The Rise of Skywalker. Something that really stood out to me in these books was Vin's relationship with Orsuer/Tensoon. We think it's Orsuer at first, later we find out it's Tensoon. I wish so badly that Tensoon had been able to make it to Vin before the end. I was so sad that he never got to reunite with her after the effort it took for them to build their relationship. But I guess we can't get everything we want. And I think we can learn a lot about how to treat others by the way that Vin won over Tensoon. It was as simple as treating him and talking to him like he was a real person. Not a servant, not a Kandra, not a bodyguard, but a real person. And real people matter. How easy is it for us to treat a person or speak to them like the role they serve to us instead of who they are? A great example of this is service people. Do you find yourself treating a service person like a service person, or like they are a real person who matters? Don't answer that, that's rhetorical. But you can see what I mean and what a difference it made. And that simple shift of thought and the way that Vin viewed Orsuer, but actually Tensoon, allowed for a completely different relationship for them. One that was so strong that Tensoon went against centuries of conditioning and following his contract and allowed him to break that contract to protect Vin. And I think that is pretty powerful. What a good lesson. Thank you, Brandon Sanderson. Okay, I'm gonna remind you again, if you have not read the trilogy, do not continue in this video because I'm going to refer to the conclusion, okay? You've had fair warning. I still don't know how I feel about the end of this story. It was very confusing for me emotionally. The story ends with more than one chosen one. At least that's how I view it, because Vin was not the hero of ages as Sazed, I hope I'm saying that right, as Sazed predicted, but Sazed himself was the hero of ages? What? I will get to Sazed in his own video. This one's about Vin. Vin is not the hero of ages, but I still see her as being a chosen one because she was chosen from a very young age by Ruin. He influenced her whole life. She did do exactly what he had chosen her to do, which was to release him, and he is eventually led to his physical body. She is also chosen, so double chosen, by Preservation, and she ends up doing what Preservation planned for her too, which was to take his power and fight Ruin and overcome Ruin. So although she does not fulfill the role of being the hero of ages, she is still, from what I can tell reading this series, very much a chosen one. And I have to say, I don't think I've ever read a book or a series where there are multiple chosen ones. So that was kind of cool. Interesting ending. So she takes this godlike power, defeats the enemy, wins. Her part in the story is over, the end. Disclaimer though, I have only read the 3 books in the main trilogy. I've not read any of the extra stuff, so if her story continues or there's more to this than what I know, I'm more than happy to make an updated video later. So don't tell me I'm wrong, just tell me to read the other stuff. Also, I hate stories where the main characters die. Maybe it's a cliche bad trope where the main characters always survive, but I just prefer it that way. So again, I don't know how I feel about this ending. For my subscribers, I am thinking about filming a wrap-up and TBR so that you know what characters to expect coming up in the future. And if you're interested in that, follow me on my Instagram. That's where I'll be posting most of my updates. The link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about liking it and subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!